distinctions of the party has been its participation by rovers and portables, tons of them, and they make the party what it is. A quick word on who's all involved behind the scenes. Chuck Dellis, W9WLX, is our chairman. And Chuck has been distributing the awards and whatnot for many years. So you may have touched base with him in that role. Tom Macon, our long past chairman, handles K9BTQ, handles he enters all the logs, does all the mishmash and the scoring. Howard Smith, WA9AX is literally the man behind the scenes entering the stuff into the computers, and God bless Howard is all I can say. And I get the easy job. I get to jawbone to ham clubs and spam people's emails. For 2021, we have some big shoes to fill. We had a record last year with 446 logs received. We think that was primarily due to the advent of the state QSO party competition, because frankly, that big, and this graph shows the logs received throughout the years, but that big bump was in out of state entries. It was huge. And as you can see from the blue line, we've been hovering very consistently at around 150, give or take, for years. And one of the goals of the club this year and pushing the party is to see if we can do something about that. Outreach into clubs such as yours is one of the solutions that we kind of came up with there. A couple other things. We've got a COVID year. We think it's going to take a hit on the mobiles. We're sure it will. We took about a 25% hit. We normally get around 20 mobiles. Last year, 14. Fingers crossed for this year. VHF and UHF participation has been growing, and I urge you guys to put 2 meters at the minimum on in your shack and make some cues on 2 meters. Help that little segment grow. It's really hot in the Fox River Valley and Green Bay areas. Rules for 2021. I am going to blow through this really quickly because the good news is nothing has changed. It's the same contest and that it was last year and frankly for the year before that. The one unfortunate thing that that we keep hoping will come along is the FT8 for the digital. It still doesn't allow for us to adequately score and handle the exchange. So FT8, FT4, I'm afraid is on the bench again for another year. Oops, I went backwards. Didn't mean to do that. Aside from that, it's very much the same type contest, etc. It's HF, UHF, VHF to some degrees. Pick your pony on power levels and modes of operation. Multipliers remain Wisconsin counties and states and provinces, and there's also, I made a quick comment that there's a power multiplier that you may make an impact on your decisions for running the contest. Awards, we're offering the same package of awards that we have, and we've got 6 plaques, 5 of which are aimed dead square at Wisconsin hams. If you're lucky enough to win one, and luck's got nothing to do with it. If you've put in the effort necessary to win one, I'm sure you'll agree that it's a very nice plaque. And I'm here to say the Ozaki Club put in just that effort. You boys literally blew away the competition last year. And the West Dallas Club finished in 2nd place, and we weren't even close to you guys. So congratulations, do it again, bang the drum. And I think you had a dozen entrances. There's, by last count that I saw, there's 20 or 30, there's 30 or maybe 40 people in this meeting. So do better this year. We're really looking for log entries. In addition to the wood plaques, there's a big certificate program. So you have to work to get the certificates, but they're within reach of a solid effort, to put it mildly. And again, you can take a look at that. It's all on the webpage and discern what you're after. I did want to highlight the rookie year. For those that haven't entered the Wisconsin QSO party, the rookie category is a little different. It doesn't mean you're a new ham. It just means you're new to the Wisconsin QSO party. So if you've never entered the QSO party, for the first 2 years, you can qualify as a rookie. And that puts you in a special place where you're competing against rookies and for winning that category. That is definitely a doable thing. We see a pretty good shootout every year for the rookie competition. We think that's pretty exciting. The one other advantage of the rookies is that every rookie gets a certificate. Zipping through our website, which WARAC.org, has a number of resources available to assist you in the contest. First and foremost, there is a report that you can download from every year or from last year. That'll give you some really good intelligence on what people are doing and the bands we saw, et cetera, et cetera. There is, of course, the county breakdown, county abbreviations, etc. That can be very helpful. There is a list, and it's started to blossom now, if you will. Spring is in the air. Well, the mobiles are reporting their planned trajectories in, so that's check that on a daily basis. That's growing. Literally, 2 or 3 come in every day. We have some resources for those considering going mobile for using Google Maps to plan your route. It's kind of exciting. Take a look at it. It could be of some help to you. There's an analytical report that's available to you. It's kind of hidden in plain sight. It's the Activate All 72s. If you press on that and then read the thing, and there's another URL, you'll get a statistical breakdown county by county of all the activity of the QSO party. That can be very helpful for planning your QSO party adventure. It's been compiled by Tom K9BTQ, and it goes back to 2013. So it's pretty interesting, and he's got it on an Excel spreadsheet that you could download and muck with and have all sorts of fun. So that's really good. The last item that I was going to point out is there's some logging programs helps as typical. The 2 big programs are N1MM and N3FJP. So those are the 2 biggies, and the contest is, however, supported by a realm of other smaller events. This year, if you're an N1MM user, we have added the call history file, and you can access that through N1MM. Okay, I am running out of time, so I'm just going to touch base on some of the strategies this year really quickly. We have got, our first and foremost rule is have fun and be safe. So that's after that, everything else is just gravy, as they say. I did want to point out, oops, I keep doing that. I wanted to point out something. If you're trying to make Wisconsin County for multipliers, what this chart shows is a Wisconsin to Wisconsin QSO rate, QSO graph for the last few years. Since 2017, 85 to 90% of all Wisconsin to Wisconsin contacts have occurred on 80 meters. The cue there is, if you want Wisconsin counties for multipliers, you've got to put 80 meters into your plan. And that's just a fact. There's as far as band use goes, the operative phrase here is 80 meters is king, 40 is second, and 20 is third. So put that into your plan as well. And the last thing that I can tell you is work the mobiles. You will get counties that you won't get any other way, and you're going to have to be on 80 meters most likely to get those, as well as CW. That puts me at the end of my list, Pat. I think I've blown through. Here's our contact site. Logs are due on March 28th. And by all in all, we would want to hear from you. We'd love to get your log. Love to, we're shooting for a record. We'd like to see that on the backs of Wisconsin amateurs. Thank you, Pat. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And Mike, if you can turn off the screen share here, we'll go back to taking a look at everybody. Very good. Thank you. Very nice job, Mike. And I think a very good summary. And as you point out, we did have pretty good participation last year and hopefully some more participation this year. Let's take time for one question for Mike.
Make it a good one.
Okay. Well, these guys are so shy. Nobody's going to speak up. So.
Okay, Pat, it's your question.
You had 2 points for CW/digital, but yet
Correct.
You said no FT8 or FT4. What digital would then work?
There's other modes besides FT8 and 4, RTTY, PSK, okay. And to be honest with you, we don't see a lot of activity there, but they are active. We do every year. We see some QSOs that way.
Okay, very good.
Pat, I was going to say I have another net commitment, so I'm not going to be able to stick around for the breakout room. So I apologize for that. But I want to thank Ozaki for giving me some time and appreciate it, and appreciate you making a hole in your agenda for me. And I hope to see each and every one of you in the QSO party. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you, Mike, and you are welcome to join us anytime. And we always have interesting presentations and lots of fun discussion afterwards too. So thanks very much for taking time out of your schedule to come and talk with us this evening. Do appreciate it. And we'll look forward to perhaps working you in the QSO party this weekend. Okay.
I'll be the bonus station on CW W9FK. So come and find me. I should be pretty visible.
All right.
Thanks,
Looking
guys.
forward to it. Okay, thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Okay, very good. We've got one announcement today, and that is about the QSO Today Hamfest is actually this weekend. And Gary, W9XT, has a comment on that. Gary is going to be exhibiting and giving a presentation, I believe.
Yeah, it starts actually Friday night for a few talks, but the main thing is Saturday and Sunday. I'll be exhibiting, and I'm also going to be giving a presentation on low band receive antennas. I think it's 4 o'clock. It's later in Saturday afternoon. They're charged. They had this thing back in August. They charged. It was free last year, but now they're charging $10, and I think the rate goes up to $12.50 in the next day or so. So if you're interested in joining, but there's like 87 different talks given those 2 days on just about any aspect of ham radio you can think of. And $10 is about what it costs to go to a ham festival. You get to go to presentations for, that comes out to what, a little over $1 per presentation. If you break it down that way, I think it's really worthwhile to do that. The bad news is for the club is that this is also at the same time the Wisconsin QSO party. Since I'm going to be exhibiting, have a booth to man, I'm going to be missing most of the Wisconsin QSO party this year. I'm going to try to sneak out early. I hope I have a couple of guys that can cover for me, but I'm probably only going to do the last couple of hours. So I really want to win it again this year and in the club competition. And I've been kind of a cheerleading in here the last few years, and I kind of sort of let everybody down. But everybody else is going to have to step up. And if you want to check my column in the new newsletter, I have some operating tips, and I'll be in the breakout room on the QSO party afterwards if anyone has any questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Gary. Yeah, I actually bought a ticket for this one, so I'm going to be interested in checking it out, seeing what the presentations are like. And I have not attended one of these virtual Hamfest before, so I'm kind of looking forward to it. And I don't know how much time I'm going to be spending on Sunday doing it, but we'll be taking a look at what's going on Saturday. Okay, and just as I mentioned, we will be doing the breakout rooms again after the meeting, so we'll have time to talk about the Wisconsin QSO party and probably some other things. And just before this meeting started, I had a flurry of emails from people pointing out that there was no password required for this meeting. I hope that didn't give anybody too much trouble. That just apparently they allow you to have the meeting start without a password now. And the box was unchecked and I didn't notice it. So we will hopefully do that next time. And I see Dick has his hand up. Did you have a comment for us, Dick? I guess not. Okay, and with that, let's go to our program for this evening. Michael, WH6ZZ, is going to talk to us. And during the presentation, please hold your questions, and we'll have some time for some questions afterwards. And I'd like to try something a little different for questions this time around. And I'd like to ask that if you have questions for Michael, that you type them into the chat window, and then I will read the questions off, and we'll try it that way. And Michael is planning to stick around after the meeting, I believe, and maybe has some additional stuff for us that we'll be able to look at in a breakout room, which could be kind of fun. During the presentation, the view will change. You will see what's on Michael's screen, and you will also have the option of looking at a bunch of people in the meeting or changing them. So you play around with your controls. That'll be to the top of the thumbnail pictures that you see. And you'll be able to turn those extra pictures off. And with that, let's turn it over to Michael.
Okay, Pat, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sounds very good.
Great. Tonight, let me get this up here. And there we go. Okay, good evening, everyone. This is me at the old Marconi wireless telegraph station that I discovered back in November, pretty much by accident, as I was looking for the old HF radio site the Air Force had on the North Shore. And I found this place to be very interesting, and I thought that I would share what I've found with you. So tonight, we're going to talk about the good old days of radio, the days when transmitters had no transistors and no tubes, and they ran at 200,000 watts to get across the Pacific. And receivers, same thing, no transistors, no integrated circuits, no tubes. How did that work? What did that look like? And then if we have some time, probably in the breakout room, we'll talk about what happened when the Navy took over and how that Marconi station relates to something called the Stairway to Heaven. So here's a little orientation for you of the island that I live on. I live here in Mililani. Here is Pearl Harbor, Honolulu, Waikiki is down here. We're going to be talking about the Marconi transmitter site, which was located way up on the northern end of the island. This is an ideal spot, of course, for transmissions going out to the mainland of US to California, and then also to Japan out this way. The receiver site back in those days was way down here. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Here's kind of a bird's eye view of the site. This is the part of the North Shore where you hear perhaps about our 25-foot high waves in the wintertime and the Bonsai Pipeline and a lot of surfing here. This is the Turtle Bay Hotel and its golf course, and snuggled up right next to the golf course is this 86-acre plot that Marconi had starting back in about 1910. This is pretty much what the transmitter building looks like today. It's just huge. There's a few things that are still standing. We'll look at some of the details here in a second. Okay, what's happening? I guess I have to admit somebody. There we go. So I got back from looking at that place and started doing some internet search. I found this 53-page document that talked about the Marconi wireless telegraph station on Oahu. Gave me lots of information. And I've just been looking elsewhere on the internet for a lot of these slides that I'm going to entertain you with tonight. So this is what the station looks like today, pretty much. If you were standing on the beach looking at the mountains, these wind generators are not part of the site. They're up kind of on a hill. This is the operations, the powerhouse, transmitter building over here. The administration building is over here. This is the hotel. And at first I thought, what do they need a hotel for? They have tourists out there that they're trying to get tourist money to run the place, but no, this is for the workers there. They actually had 15 rooms, 15 bedrooms, two bathrooms for the 15 rooms. They had a smoking lounge and a reading room and a Chinese cook there. Let's talk, before we talk about the station and some of the technology, let's take a look about who was Marconi. Some people, some authorities will say he was the father of the radio. In fact, he was not quite the father, but he used pretty much 80 years of research and things that people had done in wireless and in radio and electricity and in magnetism, and put this really to the first practical use in building long distance transmission systems and networks. He was actually born into an aristocratic family in Italy, and he developed the first practical transmitters and receivers. He's been pretty much well known across the world. These stamps, I have to thank Jean Ann Bargholtz for supplying them for our presentation here, to kind of show how he's been honored at many places around the world. This stamp is pretty interesting here. You can see this is actually his yacht. He was also an officer in the Italian Navy. He owned this yacht and he was very interested in safety at sea. So he had this stamp built in commemoration of his yacht called Elettra. Here's kind of a more of a detailed view. Notice all the antennas here, quite an antenna farm for a ship. Here's another bird's eye view of the station. This is the operations center here. The hotel was over here. This is the manager's cottage. Up above this area was actually some flight strips, and this is an air base used by the Navy during World War II. I think some of these remnants of buildings were that. The site now primarily is being used as an aquaculture farm. And so some of these white things are used for that purpose. This is what the powerhouse and operating building looked like around 1910 as it was being built. Here's some of the inside of it, the steam turbines. They had 3 500 horsepower and 2 200 horsepower steam turbines to power their transmitter equipment. Everything was duplicate there. They had one set of transmitters and one set of turbines and generators to go to the west coast of the US and another to go further west to Japan. The system ran on oil, and here's the fuel tanks being constructed. You can see they were absolutely huge. Back in those days, the roads going to that side of the island were pretty dismal, so everything was brought in by this rail line here. The transmitter was one of the transmitters was water cooled, and they had an artesian well there to provide the water for the cooling system. Here was actually a tank. It was kind of a concrete tank where they had the water for the cooling system. The first antennas were wood, and they were between 150 and 220 feet tall. And I thought, geez, how are they going to get a wood mast to be that tall? And then I saw this picture here. And so you can see that this mast seems to be pretty solid until you get up fairly high. And then it looks like they've stacked smaller telephone poles, if you want to call them that, on top of each other. And you can see a lot of guy lines coming down this way. Talking about guy lines, the original antenna system was not very efficient. And Marconi sent the head engineer out here to find out what was wrong. He came to the conclusion that a lot of the power was being lost by these, by these guy wires sucking up a lot of the radiation. So he put insulators in a lot of the guy lines, and that seemed to do the trick. In its heyday, the transmitter station had a capacity of 30,000 to 40,000 words per day. So if you wanted to get a transmission out during the day, you would pay at that time 25 cents per word. And at night, they had a cheaper rate. You could get 13 words for $1. If you took those, and that was for the cost in those days, $1 back then is worth about $26 today. If you took, and if the station ran at maximum capacity for 1 year, they would have gotten $3 million in revenue back in the 1913 value of money. In 1905, Marconi realized that he could get directivity out of these long lines. And the directivity was, I guess, the same for transmission and reception. That idea he called his bent antenna, and he patented it back in 1905. The station's antennas looked something like this back in the day. Although there was no wood support across here, they actually had multiple supports with wooden and also steel masts going down, which we'll show you in a little bit. Okay, how come I can't? There we go. So you can see a little bit more about the transmitter, the antenna farm back in those days. You can see here that this is one of those wood type masts. They actually had 2 sets of masts. One set went to California, the other set went to Japan. Each of those sets had 14 masts that were, excuse me, 470 foot tall. Those were the tubular steel masts that they put in. 470 feet tall is a lot of masts. They had to, because they're so close to the ocean, they had to paint each one of those masts every 6 months. That's why they needed 20 riggers on site to keep those masts painted all the time. Eventually, they decided, I guess that was too much to do the painting of those steel towers, steel masts. And then they moved back to wooden masts for the duration. All those masts created about 35 miles of antenna wire. Just amazing. How do they pay for some of that? If you bought some of these francs, these stamped francs, you would just paste them on the outgoing telegram and send it down to the transmission station. He also printed up quite a few of these things to give away as complimentary francs to get messages out. And he gave these to people who were investors and also to folks who were just interested in doing business with Marconi. Let's talk about what the transmission equipment looked like and how it worked. This is one of his early demonstration systems. We'll look at that in a second. So here's a diagram of an early spark gap transmitter. You see what happened here. You had the battery, which would, through the key, send a pulse through this induction coil, which is actually they called it a rim coil. We would think of it today as a transmitter. So the voltage from the battery the spike that occurred would then energize the spark gap, and the spark at the spark gap then provided a rapid spike in the electric field between the aerial and the ground. So you can see that a single sharp EMF spike created by a spark gap wasn't really friendly for the guy at the receiver end to listen to. because, you know, every lightning strike probably sounded quite a bit the same. So here may be the beginning of amateur radio. This is from a boy's hobby book in 1917, where you see the spark gap induction coil pretty much like we just looked at. But in addition to that, they had a tuning coil and what we would now call capacitors, which back in those days were Leyden jars that helped provide a little bit of more of a signal and a tuning. So this is what those RF pulses would look like through that transmitter system. Now that also wasn't very interesting to listen to. So then he invented this toothed disc for what he called the rotary spark discharger. So imagine these as electrodes on that spark gap, and then imagine here in these holes a bunch of like screws and nuts being placed to make electrodes on the other side of that spark gap. And then one of these, believe it's this one, would rotate very fast, and you'd have a series of sparks. This is kind of a schematic diagram of what it might look like. You had the rotor field over here that would be going pretty rapidly with these electrodes, and then you'd have other electrodes over here. The spark would go this way. Here's your tuned circuit, the big transformer system, and then out through the antenna. This is his discharger. The first ones that were installed there at Kahuku were 75 kilowatts. So here you can see those electrodes and the electrodes in both the rotors and the stators. Now, they had two sets. Why did they have two sets? What they were trying to do was to recreate a more of a sinusoidal wave instead of this damped wave that we saw previously. So each one of the sparks was set off in this rotary thing to go off at each one of these X's. This would be a spark discharge. So the spark discharge would take that tuning coil up on its way, then another spark discharge would take it down, and etc., to try to simulate a sine wave. Here's a picture of the installation that was seen in the newspaper at the time. It was dubbed the machine that sends messages around the world. Let's take a listen to what that would have sounded like if we had. Let's do that once again. Now, Pat tells me that it says CQPJ. PJ is the call sign for the Massey wireless station in Rhode Island. And that's still in operation today. Well, I shouldn't say operation, but it's as a museum piece. And okay. Here's a souvenir disc discharger that Marconi put together for a 1912 exhibition, and quite a few of these things were made. They're actually cigar lighters, and you can buy them on eBay or whatever these days. It's pretty interesting. So those 75 kilowatt rotary spark dischargers were replaced back in 1920 or 23 with this thing called the Alexanderson alternator. This alternator was running at 220 kilowatts and actually put out pretty clear sinusoidal waves instead of the damped waves. General Electric built 20 of these 200 kilowatt systems. Most of them went on the East Coast and the West Coast of the US, one in Hawaii, one in the UK, Sweden, Poland and Brazil. The one that was installed at our facility in Kahuku in 1920 ran at 18 kilohertz, which is if you calculate it out, it would be the 16,000 meter band, if there was such a band back then. So that Alexanderson rotor kind of looked like this. These are all basically gaps in the rotor, and it would provide an alternating current signal up to 100 kilohertz, depending upon how many gaps you had and how fast those rotors were going. Here's an attempt to kind of explain how that worked. If you think of this as a magnetic circuit, and this rotor, this toothed rotor having holes in it, would pass through this magnetic circuit, and then the change in reluctance over here would actually create a change in the alternating current field in this transformer. This thing down here is a magnetic amplifier, and this is way beyond my pay grade to try to understand and explain to you. But it was used also to kind of modulate the signal, and later on could be used in radio telephony instead. Here's the only existing Alexanderson alternator in existence right now. It's been kind of restored and is up in Sweden. If you ever get up there and you want to see it, it's up there. Let's go back to the operating building now. Looking inside the operating building, here is what some have called a helix. Actually, Marconi called it the jigger, and it was part of the tuning system that tried to regulate the wavelength of the transmissions. You can see how big some of this stuff was way back then. Let's talk about reception equipment. How did that work without diodes and without even cat whiskers way back when? So this is a receiver that was very common on some of the stations early on, and especially used aboard ships. How did this work? No diode. Okay. Consider that this is a bunch of iron filings. I guess this is maybe silver and nickel version. And these iron filings would kind of lay down dormant on the bottom of this, what was called a coherer. So if you think of the antenna coming in here, providing a pulse of energy going through here, when that energy went to ground, these iron filings would stand up and kind of be counted, and would allow an electrical path through the coherer. So here's what a primitive circuit or a receiver would have looked like in 1896. Antenna, you've got the coherer over here. You've got a battery, an induction coil. So the antenna would provide this little nudge in the coherer, and that would provide a circuit all the way to this relay through the battery. The relay would energize this telegraph kind of clicker. So this is fine, well and good, but one pulse coming in would keep those iron filings there permanently. And so it would work once, and that was about it. So what Marconi did was to be able to use this thing more than once, he had this tapper. So the EMF would come in on the antenna, the electricity would go through the coherer, down through a relay, then would go over here to the tapper. The tapper would tap on the glass coherer, and all the iron filings would fall down, and it would be ready for the next electrical signal coming in. This shows that even back in the early days, they had a punch paper tape reception kind of capability, and that's how it would have worked. Here's the actual receiver that he built back in 1896. Here's the glass coherer, and here's this little tapper, which was actuated by this solenoid. And I'm guessing this is probably the relay over here. That was fine, well and good, but it had a bunch of problems too. So Marconi put together a magnetic detector called the Maggie. The way this works, let me go to the diagram here. Consider this wire. This is 70 strands of number 43 gauge wire. The wire would come off this reel. It would go through this magnet and be magnetized in one direction. Then it would go through this magnet to be magnetized in the other direction. And so it kind of canceled out the magnetism. And so by the time it got down here, it was more susceptible to a low magnetization of the wire. So the antenna then would pick up a radio signal, excuse me, would energize the primary coil. The wire would be magnetized, and as it was going out the secondary coil, you would hear this tone, and it would go out the earpiece. Then the wire would keep going up, and would get magnetized, demagnetized, and would continue on. Let's just take a look at the early Marconi in Hawaii before we get off this subject. He was born in 1874. So he did a lot of experimentation between then and in his early 20s. He had his first patent in 1896. Shortly thereafter, within 9 months of that first patent, he formed the Marconi Wireless and Signal Company. And during this whole time here, he was trying to find contracts that would actually put his ideas to practical use. He did demonstrations all over the place, but the first contract that he got worldwide was here in Hawaii. But it wasn't for cross-Pacific wireless telegraphy. It was for an inter-island service. They were trying to put together, other people were trying to put together a submarine cable that would provide wireless service, not wireless service, telegraph service between the islands. And that didn't work too well. So an entrepreneur gave Marconi his first contract. So the first one was for this inter-island service. That facility that you saw was probably built more around the time that he was getting ready to transition to a Trans-Pacific service. That facility that we showed you earlier was actually the largest wireless telegraph station in the world at the time, both in terms of power and in capacity. And then World War II came along, and I'm out of time. So I'm going to tell you what happened when the Navy took over and how RCA was created from all this, and then what happened to something, how this all went to something that we now know as the Stairway to Heaven. So, okay, so let me say that station was actually deactivated in '78. And so if you got any questions, please use the chat, and then we will look at those things, I guess, kind of directly. And then if we have time, we'll have more of a discussion, and there'll be a break room for us a little bit later. So I gotta stop sharing right now.
Okay, well, very good. Very interesting, Michael.
Thank you.
Interesting to see all the those pictures that you got. You got a pretty nice assortment of pictures of all that old equipment, and I thought your explanations were pretty good too. So
I thought it was just fascinating. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you.
Could I make a comment, Pat?
Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, Michael, I found your presentation fantastic. And the most exciting point was when you showed that early schematic for the transmitter, which is almost identical to the Tesla coils that I was building in the late 1996 to 2002 time period. They were big puppies and pulled 15 kilowatts and put out 13 to 16-foot lightning bolts. But the schematic is so close to what Marconi had, it's amazing. Thanks for your presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for your comments, Chuck. Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, so Chuck, it's probably the spark gap you're talking to. Because I had a friend of mine who built Tesla coils and he uses rotating spark gap, similar to what Michael presented.
And I used rotating spark gaps with variable speed DC motors and tungsten electrodes. It was not a cheap expense. So it was great fun. So great that you met your friend that did that too.
Okay, and we've got a comment in the chat here from Gary, N9UUR. So, wow, a real historian in the group. And I'd have to agree with that. Did a nice job. Michael, I have to say, I felt like I was watching public TV or something. You did do a nice job presenting that. So, and Bill AC9JV says, I assume this facility is closed to the public. Are there any plans to open it as a museum?
A gentleman bought this not too long ago, and you could see maybe from some of the things he had started planting palm trees. He wanted to open it as a tourist attraction, a museum. He wanted to get it paid for by opening up condos near the beach. Unfortunately, the city and county and all the residents out there said, we have enough traffic on the North Shore. No, you can't do that. And so now he's just looking for somebody else to buy it. So I don't know what's going to happen at this point.
Okay.
It's not open. I got as far as the gate and he came out and said hi and chatted and stuff, but I didn't get an invite to go in.
Okay, well, that's too bad. And a comment from Jean Ann, N9VSV. Now I have even more history behind those stamps. Thank you. I thought the inclusion of the stamps, that was really interesting too. There's actually quite a bit of radio that is commemorated in various stamps over the years. And it was interesting to see those all in one place. And was I correct in noticing that those were from Jean Ann?
Yes, thank you for Jean Ann. She contributed those. She could probably tell you more.
Okay. So what's the story behind those, Jean Ann? You're muted.
Those are just, okay, now he's muted, I'm not.
Okay.
Sorry about that, folks.
Okay.
Really, those are an extension of my ham radio collection. Countries worldwide have issued commemorative stamps as a thank you to ham radio groups, organizations for what they have done for their communities. Another extension is satellite covers. Interestingly enough, there are postal services that will commemorate the launches of satellites, and it's an envelope with a either a drawing or a picture of the satellite. And those carrying amateur radio gear are usually marked Oscar in one way or another, either through an information card that's in the envelope or right on the envelope. So yeah, my ham radio collection has kind of multiplied in lots of different directions.
Okay, well, that sounds very, very interesting. Maybe you can show that to us one of these evenings and make an interesting presentation.
When I get them all in one cohesive place.
Okay.
A question, is this presentation being recorded or anything so we can see it in its entirety later?
Yes, Tom, I actually did remember to turn on recording this time. There was a message on the reflector right before the meeting from one of the members who said they weren't able to join us tonight. So I did turn on the recording, and we'll figure out how to be able to share it with everybody.
That's super. You know, I always knew about the iron filings, but I didn't know what the hell they did. That is, you know, this is really excellent.
Okay, great. Any more questions for Michael?
I have one. Michael, are you going to tell us what happened on the last 3 segments on that one of those last charts you had with the history of the island and the station?
Yes, we were going to do that in a breakout room, I think, after the meeting, and I'll show you how that big 200,000 kilowatt transmitter was used by the Navy to actually in a top secret station nearby to actually get to submarines in World War II, actually submerged in the Bay of Japan. And then how that relates to the construction of the Stairway to Heaven, and then how RCA put up an 11-mile long antenna from a lighthouse up to the coastline. And I'll show you where that would have gone.
Oh, interesting. I thought some of the figures on the size of those antennas and the amount of wire was just astounding.
Michael, any idea if any of the old equipment still remains on site? Is there any, if you would have gotten in, would you have expected to have seen anything left?
None of that equipment is left. Everything was either destroyed or sent out. If you get there now, it is an interesting place to see. They're doing aquaculture. So aquaculture is basically, you have a big tank of fish, and the fish do their doo-doo stuff, and that gets fed up to plants, and the plants are energized by that. And then you eat those plants in the restaurants, and then the roots of those plants actually then feed oxygen, I guess, back to the fish. So they're doing
That's
that.
aquaponics, right?
Aquaponics is one part of it, and aquaculture is with the fish too. Yeah.
Really interesting.
No equipment there any longer.
This is WB9RQR. Really an interesting presentation. Very well done. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I've been doing a lot of studying the last 3 months for the presentation, and I learned a lot myself. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Okay, any more questions for Michael?
I have a real quick question for Mike. Hey, Mike, do you live pretty close to Schofield Barracks?
Yeah, it's about Wheeler Air Force, or what is now Wheeler Army Airfield, which is part of Schofield, is only about 6 minutes away.
Yeah, kind of familiar with that from when I was a whole lot younger. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a big Navy transmitter site not too far away.
Okay, any more questions?
This is AB0VF.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Dick.
Hi, Dick. We've got some feedback.
Can you hear me?
Yes. So go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Well, we moved here from Minnesota, and they have a radio museum in Edina, Minnesota, and they have all kinds of old radio stuff, and they have a big spark generator transmitter in that building. So if you get that way, you could see it. I think they charge you 50 cents to get in. That's it. Bye.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dick. Okay. Any more questions or comments? Okay. So very good. Let's move on to
the
Tom.
Sun and Fun in Florida. Much of the Howard Hughes estate was given to the museum there. And one of the things in that collection is a spark gap wheel. Howard Hughes was involved in trying to, or in generating spark gap communications also as a hobby. I think you would need the schematics to know what to do with it, though. It was motor driven. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's hold the questions there, and we can pick up. And if you have any questions for Michael, or look at some additional material in the breakout room after the meeting. So let's go on to our committee reports. And let's start with the repeater update. How are we doing on the repeater? Okay, you are still muted, Greg. There we go.
It was acting a little strange. Everything's been working good. However, there is some interference that's cropping up, and it does sound like a data transmission. And actually, from what I've heard, it sounds like a surveyor equipment. So there's probably some surveying going on someplace, and somebody's got a bad transmitter or an illegal transmitter. And now that the snow's gone and the weather's a little better, when I do hear it, I can get up to the site and see which receiver's hearing it, so we can pinpoint it down a little bit. But if anybody hears that from your location, check the input and see if you can hear a signal. And if it's closer to you, it'd be good to know. Just try to get rid of the interference. It's not always there. It's only cropped up about 3 days. But
what does it sound like?
Half an hour today, and that's about it. But otherwise, everything's working fine.
Okay, very good.
What does it sound like?
Like digital interference, almost like a short packet burst. You might hear it on the hang time. You key up the repeater, and then when you on key before the other person talks, it'll be keying up and keying up and keying up, and it'll sound like packet bursts.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
Sounds like D-Star.
No.
Okay. Treasurer's report.
Good evening.
Money, Mr. Treasurer.
Hello. I have a huge report, so I've written it all down on this Post-it note. The last few meetings I've been saying, please renew your dues, please renew your dues. I'm happy to announce that we've hit the fictitious goal of our budget of 100 members paid, renewed their dues, plus like 15 family members. So we're 115 strong as of a few days ago. So we hit the 100, yay. Currently I'm into, as most of you know, playing with the roster, trying to, I mean, no offense whatsoever to any prior treasurer, but it seems as if the roster has not been scrutinized and tried to update in many, many years. So over 25 people have already contacted me with a change. We moved, don't have a home phone anymore. I just have a cell phone. People's email gets spammed and they change their email address, et cetera, et cetera. So this is going great, handling all the changes just fine. If you haven't looked at that preliminary document I sent out, please look at it, double check your information, and send me an email with any changes you have. And I don't know, Pat will tell me, the board will talk, but I'll give it a week or two or whatever, and then we will issue a roster for this year. So since we're not meeting face to face, I know everybody, I really liked the little small booklet we've always put out, but putting out a booklet as a PDF to you would mean you'd have to get out your scissors and print sheets on both sides of the piece of paper, which I don't think everybody has a printer which will print on both sides, and then get out your scissors and cut it to the right, and then put all the pages together in the right order. So we're just going to send out a standard letter size PDF document. And most people, I think, are going to use it on their computer anyway, bring up the PDF and look at it. If you really want to print it, you will be able to print it in its final form. I have spent some time. It's not totally automated, but it takes me about 5 minutes to go from the database to the PDF. I have to export from Excel and then bring it in the InDesign and data import and etc. So it's a few steps, but it is really easy for me now to create this PDF document. So if more people join the group or you change something during the year, we could send out an update in August or something and be a little more proactive with the roster. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have, how's our finances doing?
Very little in the way of expenditures, except for the, let's see, the Cedarburg water bill hour. We paid $22 to keep the repeater running for Greg last month. And that's really about it.
Okay. Okay, so do we have a motion to accept our report?
So moved.
Motion, seconded if I'm late.
Okay, so moved by Stan, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye. And a big thank you to Gary for all of his work.
Indeed. And the comment that Gary had about email, keep your email up to date. That's really important when we're meeting on Zoom, because the only way to get an invitation is to get the email or to have your email so that you're set up on the club reflector. So if you do make a change or you had email you don't check, please update that with Gary. I think we have sorted through all the ones that actually get bounced back when I send out the invitations, and we had just a handful of bad emails, and I guess Greg is prepared for anything, but and so just keep your email up to date.
He's definitely trustworthy.
Question about the roster before Gary leaves. Have we given any thought to putting that roster in the password protected area of the website so that we can get at it there?
No thought has been given to that. I'm slightly concerned in that, data privacy these days. So I'm not sure how far we want to disseminate this in any kind of open forum. So emailing it directly to the people that are in the list, I think is great. Yeah, if I don't know how the webpage works, if only members can access that data area, that would be good.
Yeah, it's already
Yeah,
like
that
that.
part
It's
of it you
just
have
that
to
the
log
roster
into.
is old.
So Greg, you doubled. Go ahead, Greg.
It's already up there. It's just an old roster, but it's only after you sign in. You have to be a member and have a password and login to sign in, and then you can see it all. Non-members can only see the names, and then there's a link to email them, but the website emails them. It doesn't give you the email address.
Yeah, but there's no phone number, as I recall.
Okay.
Well, when we get done with the final, I would suspect, a week or two at the worst, April 1st, I'll publish the final. And that the webmaster could maybe put up there, replace the old one, and then we'd be good.
Okay. Yeah, I think we'll be able to get that worked out once we get the information on the roster cleaned up and ready to go. So, okay, secretary's report. Ken?
I sent out the text file here a day and a half ago. Hopefully some of you were able to take a look at it and review it. If any of you see it later and you still have a correction that should be made, please email me that information directly with my email address, or my email address is kind of out there at this point with all of the activity surrounding the awards and everything else. But if you can't find that, just post it on the remailer and I'll see it. So at this point, I guess I would entertain a motion to accept it.
I move to accept the minutes.
So Chuck has a motion. I'll second the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey guys, that's all I have on that.
Okay.
Again, let me know if you've got anything to say.
All right, thank you, Ken. Any report from the scholarship committee? Nothing? Okay, thank you, Tom. Okay, old business. Do we have any old business to discuss? One old business item I would like to bring up is the Key Up activity, which ended last weekend. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. I've received comments from quite a few club members, and I think we'll be doing Key Up version 2 one of these days with some rule changes, I think, to make it a little more competitive and a little more fun, and probably not quite such a long event. And well, we'll talk about that a little more in the next month or so. If you got ideas along that, or you'd like to help set up the rule changes for the next one, or maybe help Ken with administration, send me a message and we can talk about it. But I'm pretty sure we'll be doing that one again. I'm thinking we don't want to wait an entire year to do it, but maybe we could have some kind of an annual event. So maybe a couple of times a year, something like that. But it was a lot of fun. So thanks everybody for participating.
And I received quite a few logs. So if you still have not sent me anything, text in an email or a PDF file or a Excel file or a Word document. And you use some of the standard extensions. Some of them I can't handle too well for some reason. I got an older Word program, but get that information to me. We will be issuing certificates, nice little certificate that I'll be making up. Since it's not really competitive, there's not like a first place, second place or anything. It's basically just a recognition that you stepped up and stepped in and made some contacts and helped reactivate our 2 meter and 440 FM and 222 FM presence on the band. So all the interlopers that want our bands will have a little more trouble justifying kicking us off the bands.
Okay, thank you, Ken. And Greg is proposing WHAM, worked all members. Well, that might be a stretch, but we could sure work towards something like that. So I think a lot of possibilities. A lot of possibilities.
One more comment.
Go ahead, Gary.
Sorry. So one unanticipated thing about Pat, I commend Pat who dreamed up this key up idea. One unanticipated benefit was I've received 3 new member applications from people who heard the key up thing, tried to talk to people on our repeaters, and they explained, oh, we're doing you can contact members, which went to how do I become a member? And so, yeah, we've gained 3 new members because of the key up event. So well done, everyone.
Okay, well, good job. Okay, any more old business? Okay, new business. Okay, I guess the new business we have on the agenda for tonight is the awards. It is that time of the year again, and last couple of months, Ken has been bugging everybody to get your information into him to vote for your colleagues for different kinds of awards. He's put that all together, and I'm going to turn it over to Ken. And let me just check that I got you set up here properly, Ken. Yeah, so Ken, you want to share your screen? We're ready to go.
All right, we're going to give this a shot.
Running through it. It's all yours.
And we have a few awards to give out. Before I start sharing the screen, I'll just mention that it's being done a little bit differently this year, obviously, because of the COVID thing. We still are going to have the 2 physical awards, and I'm probably going to get them prepared, but we'll discuss whether the people who have received those want me to join up with them at some point and get them, or if we just basically hold them maybe here at my place until the next awards in 2022. So that'll be after we discuss who won and what is their desires. I will be mailing out certificates to the winners, but I have them on a PowerPoint, which I'm going to show now, and we'll go through them in order. And I need to bring this up and go to this. So there is an awards committee. I get some help from a couple of the other folks. Thank you, Tom IPR, a little bit, and of course, Pat, for this. So the nice thing here is we had a pretty good response. Numerically, not a real good response, but as far as actual input goes, it was better than average. So I'm going to move into the first award that we gave, which was actually 3 of them. The President's Award given by Pat this year, and he wanted to recognize 3 people who he felt were really kind of acting as pillars of the Ozaki Club in respect to putting articles every month into the newsletter. We end up with a pretty nice newsletter as a result of that. First person on this, as you can see, is Stan Kaplan, WB9RQR, who has done a monthly column on the computer techniques. Yes?
If you were intending to share your screen, we're not seeing anything.
Oh, we're not?
No.
Okay, let me try this again here. What's going on here? All right, let's try that. Are you seeing anything now?
Message.
Like you're started here.
Just a
We're seeing a black
just a
screen.
black screen.
Are you seeing an award at this point?
No.
Just a black screen.
There we go.
Oh, it must take, did it load up a little bit slow?
Yeah, I think so.
I should remind you that I don't have real solid internet out here, so I may have tried to pull it up during a dropout, but at least you're seeing it now. Okay. Let me go back here to the first one. Did you hear my audio regarding the first 3 awards that we're giving out?
Yes.
Okay. So once again, this award is for Stan, WB9RQR. Thank you, Stan. You've written a monthly column on computer techniques for the club, and you've been doing that for a number of years. So Pat felt that it was time for some recognition for doing that. Along with Stan, Bill shaded has W9MXQ has done his monthly column on classic and antique radio for the newsletter, which has been also, he's been doing that for quite some time. And again, is kind of a pillar of our ham club, has really helped our newsletter become a real force in the ham radio hobby. The third person, of course, is Gary W9XT, who's been writing a monthly column basically on contesting and propagation for quite a while. And we wanted, Pat wanted to recognize you, Gary, for doing this. And from here, the next one is the contester of the year. And that goes to Fred W9KEY, who's, although he's been relatively new to the hobby now, he's come back into the hobby, he's jumped into the contest operating with quite some vigor and has been kind of recounting some of his escapades here in our Zoom meeting. So Fred, you have the honor of gathering that this year. Interestingly enough, almost all of these received, even though I didn't have a lot of people responding, virtually everybody that won got at least a couple, if not 3 or 4 suggestions as winners. So it was very easy to pick people. Here's the program of the year. Gary, N9UUR, several people apparently were impressed with your program on building a rooftop tower and installing a couple of antennas up on it. So congrats to you for bringing that to us. Next on down the list here is Committee of the Year, which we have 2 awards going out for that. KC90NY Tom, who has recently stepped down as the chairman of that. And he has also been hosting the Tuesday night FM net, which, as I said, he just stepped down and Greg has taken over, but he's handled the repeater committee for so many years and he's still hosting that Tuesday night net. So Tom, KC90NY, congrats for that. I don't know if he's with us tonight. And shared with him is Nels, of course, WA9JOB, who has also been helping Tom and managing the repeater for a long time. He's got a lot of history with the technical parts of that deal. And I think I'm missing one here. Let me go back here and see if I got it here. Oh yes, somehow I skipped over this. A couple of people suggested Bill, besides doing his column, it was suggested that we give you the International Goodwill Award, Bill, due to the fact that your articles on the classic amateur radio sets or boat anchors has kind of caused the newsletter to be looked at by people all over the world. And we've got kind of a footprint out in the global community, the global ham radio community because of that. So that's very nice. That makes the Ozaki Radio Club play a little bit bigger than it really is. And that's very nice. Let's skip back past these. Okay, we're up to the 2 big awards. This award is the Turkey of the Year. It goes to Don Lesh, K9MOI. This basically is a good guy award. And Don, you've been tapped as being the good guy this last year. And you've been a regular attendee at meetings, both in person and via Zoom for quite some time. And you had a few pithy remarks from here and there and also been willing to give help and guidance to other people on several occasions. The last award is the Ham of the Year. And this one was, I don't want to say it was unanimous from all the people that submitted information to me, but it was at least 2/3 of the people that submitted information suggested this award go to Pat Volkman, W9JR, who has literally stepped up the club during this time where we cannot do our social gatherings and has really managed to handle things well and given us a firm hand in the guidance. And so we all congratulate you, Pat, for that. So with that, I'm going to drop out of screen sharing here. And where's I get my marker up there? And at this point in time, I'd like to ask everybody to go ahead and unmute and give everybody a nice round of applause. Deserving winners. I will be printing up some certificates for this. I'll be sending them out. And usually we've framed those, but I didn't want to go through the expense and all that to try to mail those. And chances are the glass would get broken anyway. So large manila envelopes will be going out in a few days here to all of the winners. And at some point in time, Pat or Don, if you wish to have me get together with you, once I get the actual physical ham and turkey plaques updated with the new call letters, I can meet with you and transport them to you, or I can just hold on to those here. I can talk to you offline on what is your wishes at that point in time. And with that, thank you very much for sending me all your information. I really appreciate it. And that's just a couple things that make this club a little bit special.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Very nice job. And thank you to everybody for all the work that you put in to making this a fun organization to belong to. And I would also point out that while we do have a set of awards that we give out, and that it really is just a pleasure to be in a club with such a fine group of ham radio operators and a very nice group of people. And I have to say, I do miss being able to go out to lunch or to go out for pizza with you guys. And hopefully that we'll be able to do something about that before too much longer too. So, so thanks everybody for all your work, and keep up the effort. And okay, do we have any other new business?
I have one item.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, Nels Harvey was mentioned as one of the award winners for his dedicated work on the repeaters for a long, long time. And Nels is hospitalized at the current time. As many of you who were on the Tuesday night net heard him from his hospital room at St. Mary's Ozaki. And he's having renal problems, and his son is the only one that can get in to see him. And he has been trying to get into the 9/7 repeater and hasn't made it over the last 24 hours. He's having issues. He is listening on my repeater, 442-100, and he would like to hear from people, but unfortunately he can't get visitors. Only his son can go in to see him. So I just wanted to pass that on, that he's been a long active member of the ORC, and the guy needs our thoughts and prayers at this time. So keep Nels in your thoughts and prayers. And Dave Barrow, it's good to see you back in the land of Oz. So that's all I have tonight, Pat. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I did hear Nels on the net last night. He was having a little trouble making it into the system, but we certainly hope that Nels will be doing okay in the days to come. Okay, does anybody else have any items of new business?
Pat, I've got a comment if I could.
Sure, Fred.
I should have done it, I guess, at the beginning, but I want to thank Dave Barrow. I really don't know him very well, but Dave, you made a contribution to the Cedarburg Library of a number of amateur radio books. And while I'm not sure I've read all of them, I've read most of them. And I want to thank you for that. They are available to all members from the Cedarburg Library directly, but also via the 4-county library system. So if you're part of the Monarch, the multi-county or multi-library system that includes, I don't know, about 13 or 14 different libraries, you can get copies of the books that Dave donated. And it's a great resource for us. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it.
Welcome. Okay, very good. Okay, I do have one item of new business, or I guess maybe Ken has. When Ken and I were talking about awards, we did talk a little bit about field day, and we're not going to go into it in detail tonight or spend much time on it, but just wanted to, I guess, kind of throw it out there that field day is coming up, and if we think there's a possibility we might want to get together, we should probably look at reserving our site. If you want to add to that, Ken?
Yeah, I guess my biggest question right now is, and I'm speaking mostly to those who have operated our field day in the past few years. And I know this last summer in 2020, pretty much everybody had come up with some kind of a solo effort, either from a cabin or their basement or what have you. So I'm looking for input from members who, members who've generally operated field day in the past. What are your thoughts? Are you thinking of doing another solo effort, or would you be looking forward to getting together in late June out at the park? And if so, I'd like to get a feel for that in case, so I can put the plan in action.
I vote for the park.
I would like to do it in the park, absolutely.
Park for me.
Who's park for me?
Bill, KD9 DRQ.
That's very interesting. What is your thought, Gary? N9UUR. Curious.
I was typing in the comments. I'll delete that. I would really personally like to get 2 shots before I venture out in public too much. That's pretty much what Jean Ann and I are waiting for. I understand Thursday or Friday, the Wisconsin Department of Health is about to release an expanded who can get a shot. It's going to expand to don't know age, but it's going to include people with underlying conditions such as diabetes, etc. People will become next in line available for coronavirus shots. So I'm watching the State Department of Health tomorrow and Friday.
I think a lot of people are doing it that way. I know that I have, my next shot is next week, and I'll be through with both of my injections. My wife, who is not 65, but a school teacher, actually received her first shot, so she was able to go into Walmart and get the first one. So they're continuing to ramp it up, and I think the bulk of the people who would be involved will have had the opportunity to get vaccinated before June. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I think we can probably plan some kind of an effort then, and I'll get to work on that right away. Gary W9XT, what are your plans for this June?
I'm leaning towards the park. COVID thing, I'll have my second shot later this month or early next month, and my wife's not 65, but I want to kind of make sure she gets hers, and I'm pretty sure that's pretty likely to have happened by that time. So that's the direction I'm leaning to at this point.
Okay, good. Well, I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and reserve the park, and then those that have helped me in the past with the planning, like Vic, WT9Q, and some of the rest of you folks, and I'll get a hold of KF9MY. Mike is always gung-ho and ready to go. And we'll start the ball rolling, I guess, by saying and see who else we can pull into the effort this year. Anybody that's very nervous, indicate so, and all of us certainly understand, but I think we should be back to fairly normal. We probably will have to take some protocols into effect when we do it, but I think it would be manageable.
What do you think, Stan? You're well versed in a lot of this stuff. How do you feel about it?
Well, I'm optimistic about everybody being protected by the time that field day rolls around, but that still remains to be seen. Personally, I've had 2 shots, and Nancy has had 1 of the 2 and is about to have another. But I think it would be foolish to have field day if the herd is not inoculated. There has to be herd immunity. And I'm hoping it will be present by the time that field day rolls around. But I think we should cross our fingers and make what plans we can and be prepared if it doesn't come to pass.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Could put in some
question for Stan?
reservations, but then get everything to the point where if there is a lot of trepidation by, say, late April, early May, then we would be able to back out of it.
Question for Stan?
Go ahead.
We had a meeting for the fire department on the second Maxwell Street day, which normally occurs in mid-July. And the fire department last week elected not to hold the mid-July Maxwell Street. We're going to wait and see what comes on after all these inoculations take place in May and June. And then they'll decide if they're going to have it on Labor Day weekend. The big concern is a big crowd coming in and everyone being in close proximity. And the chief is concerned primarily that one of our members could be a carrier, even though we're all inoculated, or that somebody could be a carrier and pass it on to somebody else there. And that, of course, is going to be a lot closer than what we have for field day, but still in a public place, we're going to have people coming in from the outside. So I think it's too early to tell myself. I'd like to be back, but Ken, myself, I would not feel comfortable unless we have more people immune to it by then.
Yeah, well, my issue here is that I have to make a decision to at least reserve the park pretty quick. And I can still do that because we can back out of that pretty much at the last minute. And as we monitor the situation going into late spring, to see where things are. And I kind of agree with Stan. I think that we don't have enough herd immunity yet, but that appears to be ramping up fairly fast if you believe some of the numbers that the CDC has been putting out there. So, and there's a number of people who are willing to make the effort to do it. Clearly, we would have to modify our Friday night gathering a great deal. We could not do it the way that we've done it in the past, none whatsoever. Once field day is actually up and running, people are relatively isolated from each other, and we can continue to try to keep that distancing protocol. I think the fact that it is held pretty much outdoors is another good thing. And each individual band station will have to make sure that everybody is vaccinated or pretty much ready to go before we can actually permit them to come out to the site. So there's a number of ways we can work within the framework. And there's enough people who indicate that they'd be positive for doing that. I'm going to go ahead and put in a reservation with the thought that if things don't work out, we'll cancel that reservation. And then we'll move ahead with some planning. This will be a topic for more discussion in April meeting, I believe. Pat, I think you mentioned that, and that makes more sense. Need to make a couple of moves now, but April is a good time frame to go ahead and put the hammer down a little bit more on the planning with still having the ability to back out.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we'll put it on the agenda.
Anybody
for-
else with a comment?
Gary, did you have a question? Gary, did you have a question?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, okay, very good. Ken, I am informed we forgot one of the awards.
Okay,
The Wisconsin
one did we
QSO
forget?
party, the Wisconsin QSO party
oh,
plaque.
well, you were the person who ran the machine. Would you like to announce who won that plaque?
Well, as we were reminded at the start of our meeting, the Ozaki Radio Club won the Wisconsin QSO party contest, club contest by quite a bit. And we were awarded a very nice plaque. And Mike, KD9GCN, our trustee, has the plaque. And we thought it would be good, and actually the idea came from Gary W9XT, that we should just give that out to one of the people who participated. And so I got a list of all the folks that were in the Wisconsin QSO party and kind of weighted it based on how many QSOs everybody made. And then I made a random number generator. So we had a random drawing out of that group of people. And the person who won was Jim, K9QLP. So, congratulations, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Thank you.
And if we win that again, then we'll be passing it out again. And I can see my internet is freezing up here, so I don't know. Can you guys hear me okay?
Coming through fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you got a little glitch once in a while, but that's probably what I'm doing over here.
Okay. So congratulations, Jim. So guys, another incentive to get into the QSO party this weekend. Chance to get that, actually a pretty nice plaque. Okay, do we have any more new business?
Move to close the meeting.
We have one motion for adjournment.
I'll second.
Second.
Who
Seconded by
seconded?
Todd, N9DRY. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
That wasn't Todd, that was Dr. Spock.
Okay. One and the same, I guess. Okay,
Live
very
long
good.
and
Thanks,
prosper.
everybody. Thanks, everybody. And I will start up some breakout rooms here. And tonight I've got something called Ham Radio Help. If you just want to jump in there for talking about things, any radio related questions. I've got one for the presentation discussion, the Wisconsin QSO party, and a general chat. So anybody who wants to go join a room, feel free to go do so, and we'll give everybody a minute. If you can't quite figure out how to do it, let me know. I can put you in a room.
Pat?
Yes.
You know, it might be worth considering that once we start meeting again as a group, that at the meeting, after the meeting, we have 3 tables or whatever it is to discuss one or more topics that are relevant that evening. Because that's the idea of these chat rooms is really great.
Yeah, I think that's a
It's
good
called
idea.
Pizza and beer.
What did you say, Peter?
Fermentorium.
Buy us all a beer?
It's called Fermentorium or John's Pizza. Pat, can you put me in the QSO party room? I don't get that on my bottom of my screen. I don't have that tab.
We don't have the breakout rooms yet.
Okay. They don't
Right.
show up when everybody else sees them.
Okay, Ken, you can't see it, I think, because you're a co-host. So I'm going to turn off your co-hosting thing. And now you might be able to see it.
No.
It doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a co-host.
I see it.
And I see him.
Yep.
You can't see it down at the bottom of the screen when you move the cursor down there
Nope.
with the,
Normally it'd
all the
be
other
to the right of everything, but it's not.
Record,
there.
share screen, chat, participants' reactions, but not the breakout rooms for some reason. I mean, I should probably update my Zoom client and maybe.
Mine's the latest on Linux and I don't see it. I mean, normally I would see it on the right side on the bottom, but it's not there.
Which room did you want to join, Ken?
QSO party, XT, are you going there?
yeah, I'll go there.
All right, hang on. Let me find you on the list here. Ken. Okay.
Hey, good.
Pat, this is Fred. I don't have any choices either. I guess put me in the QSO party room. If you can do that manually, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I will take care of that, Fred. Hang on.
And I'll go in the QSO party room also, Pat.
Okay.
This is Tom. I'd like to go in Marconi.
Okay. Hang on just a minute. All right.
Yeah.
Bill Marconi.
Okay, hang on just a minute there, Bill. Oops. Okay.
And Tom, AA9XK here to the QSO area.
Okay, Tom. There we go.
Thank you.
And it just takes a little bit there. Oh, Ed Reed, I didn't even see you. You're so quiet in this meeting. Just sitting back there. Glad you joined tonight. Okay, anybody else need to get moved to a room?
I'm kind of curious how many people see the menu. I see the menu clearly,
Okay.
but I'm a co-host, and so I believe that Gary said he saw it.
Yeah, I think it sounds like other co-hosts have it, but us regular guys don't.
Well, but Ken was a co-host.
Well,
I saw it in the past, but I don't see it this time.
Yeah, something's amiss.
I'd like to go to the QSO room, Pat, Vic.
Okay, hang on, Vic. Okay, there you go.
Hey, Pat, how about the Marconi room?
Did I hear a
For,
turkey clucking?
For K9MOI.
Okay, hang on, Don.
Thanks.
There you go. I sure would like to figure out why everybody does not see this.
Yeah, I helped Marconi get his start. You know, I'm kind of an old guy I am.
Yeah, he, as a young boy, he came to your house for instructions, didn't he?
Yes, he did. I had a very large hamster run generator and he wanted it.
Okay, Don, I got you assigned to the room. It says, and your name actually shows up there. It's taken some time for you to join. I don't know. Don't know what's going on with that. Okay, anybody else want to get moved to a room? Okay.
N9DRY. How about the Marconi room?
Okay, hang on. Okay, I just assigned you. I don't know why Don is still here.
Todd's not moving either. Oh, I guess he did. Hold on.
I guess Todd just went. Todd and Don. Okay. All right. So I don't know.
Dick, are you gonna?
Todd's gone.
Yes, Dick.
Are you gonna have a training room for Zoom?
Well, I don't have one set up tonight, but if you'd like to get some practice, I can set up a meeting with you.
I think I figured out the echo business because I'm using my phone for the audio and the pictures, video, that I'm listening to it on my computer.
Probably you
So
should turn the audio off of one of those two.
Yeah, you can only have one device with audio. In fact, if you think about earlier in the meeting when Stan and Nancy were on, they each have their own video, but there's only one audio. And the audio is sensitive enough it picks up like a computer in another room and will cause the feedback to happen. So just have one device going and then it should work okay.
yeah, I was trying to figure out how to turn the audio down.
Okay. Yeah, you actually have to turn it off. Okay. Looks like there's a bunch of guys in Wisconsin QSO party and a bunch of guys in presentation. And anybody else want to get moved?
You gonna have any other groups, or, I mean, anybody who stays here, are they gonna be in a group, Pat?
Well, I've set up a room for just like kind of general ham radio help and one for just a chat room, but we can just stay here and chat too. From what I can see though, the only two rooms that people have joined are to talk about the Marconi presentation and then the Wisconsin QSO party. So we can just.
If I joined another room, I might be kind of lonely.
You would be the only one right now, yes. Okay, great. Okay, well, if anybody else wants to move and you don't see the menu, just let me know. And Bill, I don't know, maybe we need to do a couple practice sessions and figure out what this business with the breakout room menus.
I wonder if it is updates, because there have been some pretty drastic updates in the last couple of weeks. I've noticed some things, like for instance, I noticed tonight, Pat, that when you would talk, I was set up as gallery and I have the participants over to the side. So if I see somebody enter, it's easy to find them. Well, it would say who was talking and right up at the top of the screen. I've never seen that before. So if you were talking, it would say Pat Volkman or whatever you have for your call up, Pat Volkman W9JI is talking. I've never seen that before.
No, I've seen it in the past.
Have you? I just have not seen it. And maybe it was
Not recent times, maybe, but way back when, I think maybe.
I don't remember it until tonight. But the other thing is, in the Wisconsin meeting,